In this video, we review the equation of a parabola. The equation of the parabola is a parabola is not a rectilinear line, which equation is y of x equal mx plus b. This is for a rectilinear line. The equation of a parabola is this one. So we want to analyze this equation. First of all, I want to give you a few facts for a parabola. A parabola is defined like the geometrical place of all the points that this distance, it exists a point that is called the focus, that the distance from the focus to the point is equal to the distance from the point to a line that is called the directrix, D, and this distance, and this distance are the same for any point. For this point, this distance will be the same as this distance. If I go to another point, this distance should be the same of this distance. The geometrical place of all points that the distance from F to P is equal to the distance from P to the line D is a parabola. A parabolic antenna is used because this property makes that if you have a parabolic antenna like this one, you have the focus, any ray that come here will pass to the focus. This is the principle of an antenna. That is why we use a parabolic antenna to concentrate the signal in a point in the focus F. And why this is true? Well, you make the slope here. Well, this is it has to be with incident angles. The incident angles of this ray, it goes with this angle, and the reflected angle is go with the same angle, but doesn't matter. One, I want you to realize that in a parabolic equation, the slope is changing continuously. The slope here is like this. The slope here is lower slope. Here is zero the slope, and the slope is going up and up and up. It's not like a rectilinear equation where the slope is constant all the time. So there is a big difference between a parabolic equation and rectilinear equation. So this is the thing that you have, the facts that you want to understand. Y of x, an equation like this, 3x plus 2x plus 1, y of x is always a parabola. So the other thing that, well, in this example, A is 3, B is 2, and C is 1. The other thing that I want you to refresh is the quadratic equation. The quadratic equation say when y of x is equal to 0, when ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, and you know the quadratic equation is x1 equal minus b plus square root of b squared minus 4ac, and x2 is minus b minus square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a, and this is the quadratic equation. And what I would like you is to do this homework 3. The homework 3 say you have a parabola, and this is the parabola. The first question that asks you, find A, B, and C. Very easy. Draw y of x. Well, you draw, you put points, and you draw the parabola. The third question is find x1 and x2 such that yx1 and yx2 is 0. So it asks you, if you draw the parabola, let's say this parabola, you have to find these points, the points that doesn't have any height. Y is 0 for this point. For this point, y is 0. For this point, y is 0. You have to find, how you will find, you use the quadratic equation. So go on, let me see here. And also, I want you to do this problem. To design a rectilinear line, you need 2 points. With 2 points, you are done. You can define a rectilinear line because the line that passes with 2 points is the rectilinear line. But when you have a parabola, you need 3 points to define a parabola. So I'll give you the 3 points. The point P1, P2, P3. I'm asking you, can you construct the parabola? Can you find the equation of the parabola? Can you find A, B, and Z in a way that you can know what is ax squared plus bx plus z, knowing that the point P1 is when I is minus 24, A1 squared plus B 1 by 1 plus C. This is one equation. Oh, and the second equation will be taking this point. This point says when x equals 0, y minus 24. So y is minus 24 and x equals z. Oh, I found z. And the third equation, so you solve the three equations and you find ABC. Once that you find ABC, you will find AX, the equation of the parabola, because you know A, B, and C. And once that you find the equation of the parabola, you can find, maybe you can find the slope between P2 and P1 and realize that the slope between P2 and P1 are different than the slope between P3 and P2. So find the slope. Imagine that between P2 and P1 there is a rectilinear line going from P2 to P1 and find the slope. And from P3 and P2, imagine that there is a rectilinear line going from P3 to P1 and P2 and find the slope. And you will realize that the slope here is completely different than the slope here. And the other question that I ask you, there is a point x equal 1/2 that is the minimum value of the equation. That means that the parabola, when you draw it in x equal 1/2, you will find the minimum here, the minimum point. I want you to be sure that this is the minimum point. Do it and let me see. The other thing that I want you to be sure is to realize that there are positive and negative slopes for rectilinear line. This is a rectilinear line, the equation of a rectilinear line. Imagine that you have y of x, 5x plus 1, and imagine that you have minus 5 of x plus 1. What you draw? In this equation, you draw this rectilinear line. Okay? In this equation, what you draw? Well, you draw the equation of the rectilinear line. You calculate the slope on this equation, and when you calculate the slope, will be m equal 5. Of course, because the equation of the rectilinear line is mx plus b, so m equals 5. When you find the slope of this rectilinear line, you draw the rectilinear line when x equals 0, y equals 1, so this is the point. But the rectilinear line will have a slope negative. What does it mean that it has a slope negative? Well, the rectilinear line will do like this. And what will be this point? This point is the point when y is 0. When y is 0, 5 minus 5x plus 1, so minus 5x equal minus 1, so x equal 1/5. So this point is 1/5. It's positive. So this is a rectilinear line with a slope m equal minus 5. I want you to understand that there are positive slope and negative slope. The positive slope means that you give a step in the positive direction and the result will make that there is an increase in the function. While here you take any point and you give a step to the right in the positive direction, and the result will be that you will find a slower height. So the slope is negative in this way. So find the slope for this rectilinear line. I hope this idea will give you, these tips will give you the idea of rectilinear lines. It's very important that you master rectilinear lines. So in this part, I want you to get the feeling of what is a positive and a negative slope for a rectilinear line. So I have choose two rectilinear lines, y of x 5x plus 1 and y of x minus 5x plus 1. So the first one have a slope of 5, and I'm going to show you how to get the feeling of the number 5 of the slope. What it means that the slope is 5. You know that the definition of the slope is y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1, which is this quantity is y2 minus y1. Let's go to right here, y2 is all this height, y2, and this point is y1, so it's all this height, y1, okay? So y2 is this one, y2. Let's go to erase here, yes, right here, okay? So y2 minus y1 is clearly this this side of the triangle, and x2 minus x1 is this side of the triangle. So the slope is y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. If we say that the slope is 5, what we are saying? Well, we are saying that y2 minus y1 is m times x2 minus x1. What we are saying is that the change in y, delta y, what is delta y? y2 minus y1. The change in y is m times the change of x. What is the delta x? Delta x is x2 minus x1. So there is a definition. The definition is that the change of x is x2 minus x1. And there is a definition that the change in y, of course, is y2 minus y1. So, in this curve, what we have is that the change in y is 5 times, the change in y is 5 times the change in x. So this is the way I want you to visualize. Our equation that we have is that the change in y is 5 times the change in x. So you move one step to the right, always to the right. So delta x is positive. And what you expect is that the delta y will grow up 5 times delta x. So the correct picture here is that if this delta x is 1 meter, this should be 5 meters, because delta y is 5 meters, 5 times delta x. So if delta x is 2, for example, delta y will be 5 times 2, it will be 10. So your triangle will be 2 and 10. So is this slope the same that this slope? Of course that is the same slope, because the slope of this one is 10 by 2, which is 5, and the slope of this one is 5 divided by 1, which is 5 also. So what I mean is that when you have a curve with certain slope, whatever you do on a step in the x direction, delta x, you will make this step, you will make the curve go delta y up, going up, if the slope is positive. What happens if the slope is negative? If the slope is negative for another curve, for this one, for example, if you make a step delta x to the right, so delta x is always positive, delta y will be down. So this, the slope for a negative, for a curve that is negative, delta x will be like this, but delta y will be like this. So this is your triangle. Okay, so this is the feeling that I want you to get. So play with this equation to get the feeling that what it's mean m equal minus 5. Good luck. So please do this homework. For this case, the curve is y of x equal 10x plus 10 a la 6. And I want to know, if I do one step of 1 meter, what is the change in y? Well, I have put 10 a la 6 to make you to understand that all the result of this problem will be the same, even if I put, instead of this equation, y of x 10 a la x plus 1, or y of x 10 a la x plus 10. All the result will be the same. So the change in x, 1 meters, it doesn't matter where you make the change. You can make the change, if this is the rectilinear line, you can make the change of delta x here, or you can make it on this area, delta x. Whatever you make the change in delta x, your step will make the function will grow like this delta y. So please calculate everything for these two functions. For the first function, this one, and for the second function, this one. Calculate the same thing to realize what are the meaning of the number 10, that is the slope. The slope makes delta y to increase or decrease in proportion to the slope. Delta x, delta y will be m times delta x. Okay? Okay, good luck.